I hope you guys like the new set, at least the way it looks, because it took a long time to fucking set up. I set it up, I'm ready to record. There's a blinding light from my window and I have to set up my curtains. But I don't have a curtain rod, so I go to Walmart, I buy the curtain rod, but then, well, fuck me, the fucking curtain rod, the thing in the curtain goes the wrong way. So it's just a long curtain instead of a long curtain this way. So I just ended up nailing it to the fucking wall. That was my morning. This video's fucked already. Have you guys ever played a game that connected with you or resonated with you in a way that no other game really ever has before? Or at least, at the very least, it fills a void that you just didn't realize was there. Now, that's a heavy question. I get that. It holds a lot of weight to it. It's not every day that you're going to find a piece of media that is going to connect with you and resonate with you, especially at a later age in life where it seems that it's hard to give a shit about anything. I long for the days where I was a kid and any game that even remotely was fun, like, resonated with me and left a place in my heart that, you know, that's never going to be replaceable. A lot of people like to shit on those nostalgia goggles, but at the end of the day, being a kid was a pretty good time to be playing video games. So then what makes Final Fantasy IX so different? I'm going to do my best to kind of articulate why Final Fantasy IX means so much to me, even though I've barely played it this year. You know, funnily enough, I still have my dad and my aunt's old copy of Final Fantasy IX, and it's a shame that I never played it as a kid because I just wasn't old enough to really appreciate what it was. I was a stupid, dumb, idiot baby still shitting my pants all the time and couldn't read, so like I didn't get very far. This particular video is actually months in the making. I had this idea back in April before my last video, the Malicious Bane one. I had this idea way before that video, and I thought I was gonna have it done by at least May, but it's not May at all. But I digress. Sit back, relax, and let me tell you about why I love Final Fantasy IX for a disturbing amount of time. Final Fantasy IX was released July 7th in the year 2000, and it was met with critical acclaim. Many who had played the game hold it in high regard, and there are many who would argue it's the best entry in the series, at least at the time. With so much praise and love for the game, it's interesting to note that the game had a surprisingly low sales. Final Fantasy IX sold 5.3 million copies worldwide, which is a huge number, don't get me wrong, but it's safe to say that it pales in comparison to the 8.5 million units that Final Fantasy X sold, or the 11 million units that Final Fantasy VII sold. But why is that? IX's release was interesting to say the least. It was released a year before Final Fantasy X, which is the first Final Fantasy to be on the next-gen console at the time, the PlayStation 2. It was going to have fully voice-acted cutscenes, which was so new at the time.
Sorry. Well then, alright. Now, we will go to the temple at Jose.
The game ended up being delayed as to not compete with Dragon Quest VII, and even if that was a good decision, I can't help but imagine that the hype for the game might have been overshadowed by the promise of the next generation's capabilities. I don't remember much from the time, because I was fucking 1 year old, but as I grew up, I never heard anyone talk about Final Fantasy IX. All I ever heard was talk about 7, 8, and 10. Even in Kingdom Hearts, a game that I'm super familiar with, there wasn't a cameo from a Final Fantasy IX character until Vivi's brief inclusion in Kingdom Hearts 2. Now, it really is a shame that no one ever talks about Final Fantasy IX, because it genuinely has one of the most compelling, if not the most compelling story in any game that I've played. Like, for real, this game made me fucking cry, like tears from my fucking eyes. Not a lot of media can get me to do that, especially a game. Now, I genuinely don't want to get too much into the story because I really think that you guys should experience it yourself. I think that I won't do it justice enough to tell you what happens, but I will give you a short synopsis about the very beginning of the game and then kind of move on to other topics. The game begins with a beautiful CGI cutscene of a mother and her child traveling through the ocean during a storm. The waves are rocking the boat around, and the lightning flashes, revealing the mother's face when it hard cuts to a princess sitting in her castle, daydreaming of the event. She opens her window and looks into the distance as the camera pans out from her castle to view the vast landscape of the Kingdom of Alexandria, surrounded by this thick mist. The camera cuts to an airship flying through the fucking air, right? Fucking smart-ass me in the fucking script. Here we meet our main character Zidane, a rambunctious thief working for the well-renowned group of bandits known as Tantalus. The group goes over a plan to kidnap Princess Garnet till Alexandros the 17th, the princess we saw a few seconds ago. They plan to go into Alexandria posed as a theater group, performing their rendition of I Want to Be Your Canary, a famous play in the world of Gaia, I guess. While the crew is planning out their heist, we are taken to the town of Alexandria, where we are introduced and can control a Vivi, aka the best boy and the sweetest boy in all of gaming. I think it's kind of cool that you start off playing as not the main character, but a party member. And throughout the game, you actually switch control for multiple characters and not just play from Zidane. I think it really helps the story kind of flesh itself out, and you get to experience it from different perspectives. And I think that's really cool, and it makes the whole story feel organic and alive. Vivi arrived in Alexandria after purchasing a ticket to the very play where the heist is to take place. But our little black mage runs into a problem. It turns out he was sold a counterfeit ticket and must now sneak into the castle with his new rat friend in order to see the show. The performance starts, and the plan to steal Princess Garnet is set in motion. And to be honest with you, the princess is pretty accommodating. She's basically begging to tag along with Zidane. He's literally like, hey yo princess, come with us, and she's like,
fuck it, I'm down.
But stopping them is our fourth major character, Captain Alderbert Steiner, Royal Knight of Alexandria, whose sworn duty is to serve the Queen and protect Princess Garnet. Steiner confronts Zidane and he chases him and Garnet to the stage while the play is taking place. While all this is going down, Vivi is caught trespassing and in fear rushes onto the stage and is now with the other members of the main cast. Tantalus' theater ship leaves the ground and takes off with Steiner and the princess, but not before the Queen orders her troops to shoot down the ship, and they land in the evil forest appropriately named the Evil Forest. Now, I could go into a play-by-play of what happens next and tell you exactly how the story is going to go down, but not only do I think that would be a total disservice to you and the game, I think that this video would be really boring because it's a 45-hour game and there's so much to talk about, and I just think you need to experience it for yourself. With that being said, I kind of want to talk about the specifics of the game, not so story-based, but more about what goes into it, starting with the visuals. Square Enix has always been known to push their games to the fucking limit with their console capabilities. Like, Kingdom Hearts 3 is a big pile of dog shit, but the game is fucking beautiful. Fortunately for Final Fantasy IX, the game is really good and also visually impressive in a lot of places. Now for my own convenience, I went ahead and got all the clips shown in this video on my Switch using the HD remaster on the eShop. I do think though, if you have the PlayStation version, it's gonna work perfectly fine. The game looks fucking good. I went ahead and tried it on my PlayStation 3, and it looks really good. It's just an amazing looking game. Now if it's your first time experiencing the game, I think the HD version is the better version, and I'll get into that later. I wanted to go ahead and tell you guys that now, so that when I get into the specifics of the game, there's no confusion. We are looking at the HD version. The character design and art direction were given to Toshiyuki Itahana and Yoshitaka Amano. I'm sorry that I fucking butchered those names. Squall and Cloud's designs look a lot more manga-inspired and angsty, while characters like Steiner and Vivi feel very cartoony and expressive, and it really fits well with the world that they've chose to create. You know, I really have this nostalgic feeling when I see an old pre-rendered background. Games like Resident Evil or even the previous two Final Fantasies have these painted pre-rendered backgrounds with character models just placed on top. See, at the time, consoles couldn't render that many of these locations. I personally really like the look, and it's a shame that it's a practice that isn't seen in games that come out today. As much as I do like the backgrounds, there is kind of a glaring issue that I have with the HD port. It has these really ugly gray borders on both sides, and that's because they couldn't really scale the aspect ratio and had to keep it at the original one. When doing some research on it, I kind of found that Square wasn't the best at saving their assets from previous games, and you have to wonder why they wouldn't do that. Now I understand that they could never have known that these games were going to be released on the fucking PlayStation 4, the Switch, a PC, mobile for some fucking reason. As much as I kind of understand that there just wasn't a way to back up these games at the time, I do like to think that this was a conscious choice. Like Mr. Square himself was sitting on the money pile, writing the success of their games when an intern comes in like, "Hey boss, should we back up all the really popular and well-received Final Fantasy games?" No. I actually found a really cool patch for the game that touches up the renders and shows what the backgrounds could have looked like if they got a proper upscale. I think it's pretty cool, and if you're interested, it'll be linked down below in the description. I also found out there was a documentary about the game called Inside Final Fantasy IX, produced by the developers that worked on it, and what I found was really interesting. They had broken up into teams to design and build each location to give a sense that each place you visited had its own way of being self-sufficient. With its own people to talk to and layouts of the map, the way locations are laid out makes sense when thinking about where they're located. NPCs from other kingdoms can be found visiting each other. They walk around and can be seen traveling from different parts of town to another. Little things like this make the game feel so alive. It's just so cool to think about how much time went into creating such a vibrant world. Each location being given its own music makes every place feel so unique. This soundtrack is so goddamn good. Like, fuck it, just listen to these. Are you hearing this shit? It's better than sex. I assume. What the fuck? This ain't your fucking J. Cole, your Ariana Grande, your fucking Joji. Ain't none of that shit. That's fucking Vivi's theme. Each character's theme is just so fitting to who they are as people and the stories that they go on and the adventures that they go on personally that I haven't even talked about the fucking characters. Let's start with our main character, Zidane. We already talked about him a bit, but I'd like to cover a few points. Zidane is a very flirtatious and extroverted character who cares about his friends and often puts their well-being ahead of his own. This type of main character is such a breath of fresh air when he's compared to his really introverted and stoic counterparts. The Clouds, the Squalls, the Jokers. Zidane's character feels organic and real. He's friendly, but it's not as ham-fisted as other outgoing characters like Sora. Zidane has flaws and he feels like a real person. The entire cast is written this way. An interesting thing about Zidane is that he really doesn't drive the conflict in the story. His story arc doesn't really start and stop until late into the game. He just does what he can when he wants to help others because that's the kind of person that he is. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I don't fucking know. Let's move on to Vivi. Vivi is the Black Mage, whose design is like an homage to the original Black Mage sprite from the first game. Vivi's story begins shortly after his grandfather's passing, and he leaves his old home to explore new places for the first time. At the start of the game, he's not confident in himself, like at all, and doesn't really believe that his magic is useful as the rest of the other cast seem to think. His dynamic with Zidane is that of a little brother. Zidane constantly looks out for him, going as far as to show him rituals among men. They pee together. It's more wholesome than it sounds. Vivi's character has one of the most compelling stories in any game that I've played, and I want to leave it at that because there's a lot of spoilers with him, and I think it's better to experience the story firsthand, yada yada yada. I'm not going to say that again. Princess Garnet of Alexandria decides to go by the alias of Dagger. Dagger works as the white mage and summoner of the group, which is kind of cool. Her story to find her place in the world and to turn herself into someone fit to one day lead her kingdom is satisfying. Watching her start depending on her party and ending as this confident, caring person, she's great. She's amazing, good character. Alderbert Steiner, loyal knight of Alexandria, tags along with the group to keep Garnet safe. He starts off with a strong distrust towards Zidane. Steiner is a very emotional and passionate person who only wants to do what he believes is morally correct. I can see Steiner being a bit unlikable or annoying at first, but by the end of the game, I think he's one of my favorite characters, like honestly. A few hours into the game, we meet Freya, a dragon knight from the kingdom of Bermesia. Freya's journey is to find her long-lost lover who went missing years ago, and it's really tragic and genuinely really compelling to, watch go down. It's really interesting to see her calm and confident demeanor really contrast her desire to meet up with her long-lost love. Quina is the blue mage from some swamp that the main group find their way in. Their goal is to travel and eat the best foods that the world has to offer and one day become an amazing chef. Quina is not the most intelligent character, but they have their moments. They show genuine care for Zidane and the other party members. And a fun fact about this, Quina doesn't have a gender. They are referred to as she, and characters use words like him or her when referring to Quina. It's not a part of who Quina is as a character, and she doesn't really seem to mind or notice. I think it's kind of cool to have a character like that in a game like this, and even though it was way back then and they couldn't really touch on, gender issues, or I don't even know if that's what they were going for, I think, having a character like this is strides compared to what other games were doing back then, so I think it's just kind of cool. Next is Aiko, a young girl from a summoner village who has the ability to summon eidolons. She's the last of her people and is kept company by a group of Muggles that watch over her and act as her new family. She acts as a white mage summoner combo in a similar fashion that Dagger does. Finally, we have Amarant, the game's edgy character. We couldn't have a JRPG without one of these. Amarant is an ex-bodyguard who challenges Zidane and joins your party after losing in a 1v1. He's okay, I guess. Not the strongest character in the story, but he has his moments. And how could I forget to talk about the baddie? Kuja, the king of fan service. Kuja works as the foil to Zidane, paralleling his ideas pretty well. He's flamboyant and has this sense of romanticism in the way he speaks. Now, for obvious reasons, I'm gonna move on, but Kuja is probably one of my favorite villains in the genre. A lot of games in this genre tend to have a problem when it comes to the characters when they finish their stories. It seems like once the story is complete, they kind of fall into obscurity and they tend to act in a way that contradict who they are initially. For example, in Persona 5, Futaba is a shy girl who is socially inept and she literally cannot go outside, but as soon as she joins your party, she's quippy and a smartass.
You gotta hit them!
It's kind of jarring and doesn't make sense to who she is. I can happily say that 9 doesn't really have that issue. The character writing is very consistent, and throughout the game, it's felt like the writers had a vision of genuinely who their characters were and how they were going to grow and provide to the story. Now, I realize that I haven't talked about the gameplay at all, and I know that I need to because this video is going to be a fucking eternity if I don't. Oh my god. If you played a turn-based RPG, then you should know what to expect. I knew going into this that I would probably be bad at this game, and I fucking am. I died a lot. Like a lot. A lot. Final Fantasy IX's combat is very par for the course with their use of active time battle systems, but this shit is so slow, dude. My biggest complaint is how long it takes to battle. It just takes so long. You wait for your meter to fill up, you put in your command, you'll wait. Characters do the command and repeats the process. I got used to the pacing as time went on, but at first it really dragged. Swear to God, summoning can take like 2 fucking minutes. Oh good, it just ended. I mentioned earlier that the HD version is better, and I'd like to elaborate on that just a little bit. The developers decided to add a speed up auto battle and a 9999 damage option, so grinding out battles is easier and takes up less time. A continue option was also added, so dying doesn't mean you have to go back all the way to your last save. It's a great addition considering how dogshit I am at this game. and I probably would have been dissuaded to finish it if that were not the case. The original version has high spawn rates and is significantly slower, so having the option to speed up grinding and have easier access to experiencing the story is always nice. What I really like about the combat system is how abilities are learned. Abilities and spells are attached to weapons and armor that you wear in battle. Grinding and getting experience points gives you permanent access to those spells. I like the incentive to keep old equipment. Buying and synthesizing equipment that is technically weaker than what you have makes sense because you can gain an ability or spell that will help you later on. It's a cool system and I think it's just really enjoyable. Combat isn't really the selling point of this game. To me, the story and world building of Final Fantasy IX is the bulk of what makes this game great. This game introduces a mechanic called active time events that appear at times when you're exploring locations. These events take focus away from Zidane and show you what other characters are doing while the main story is going on. These events work to develop characters of this world and provide depth in a way that I haven't seen in other games like this. For example, Gather grew up away from the common people because she was kept in a castle all her life, but as she is by herself in a town, she decided to try talking to people and learn how commoners talk. She picks up on words like awesome and scumbag. She is constantly making efforts to better herself, and you wouldn't be able to see this if the story just stayed with the main character the whole time. It's not necessary, but it makes the world feel alive because things are constantly happening away from the main cast. People are living their lives as the story goes on. Characters separate from the group, yet they are always relevant. They miss each other and worry where each other are and how their friends are doing. The game does a great job developing the characters outside of these optional events, and the ending of everyone's stories feel complete. There's happy endings and endings that are bittersweet. I really don't know what the point of this video was supposed to mean, and I honestly think about it constantly because I never thought that I would be able to do this game justice. I've rewritten this video 5 times, and I wouldn't be surprised if I scrap this one too. This game touched me in a way that nothing ever could as an adult. It made me cry and it made me remember how good storytelling can just really affect me in a medium like this. It makes me remember why I love games so much. I didn't know how to structure this, but if there's anything you can take away from this is that Final Fantasy IX is worth your while. It is worth every opportunity you have to play it. It's worth all the time that you can put into it. It's just so good. And I could make a video getting into more spoiler heavy topics about why I like the game specifically, but I really want you guys to experience it yourself and in turn, find a new love for this game if you've never played it already. And if you've played it and you gave it a shot and you didn't like it, well, I recommend you try again. I really do. I appreciate you guys taking the time to sit here with me and let me talk to you about a game that I just found so dear. Playing this game was a blast and recording the footage was dope. I will say though, if you guys want to support me, I recommend hitting the subscribe button or following me on Twitch and my podcast that is also down below in the description, my gaming channel as well, all that good shit. Go play Final Fantasy IX, please. Just please do it. Fucking wow, dude. Holy shit. That was so fucking good. Am I fucking crying? Like for real? Jesus Christ, dude. I gotta make a video.